They thought they could command me to liquidate my soul, my beloved 1969 Mustang, to clean up my brother's mess. But I had a different plan. I'd rather smash her into a million pieces than let them win. My phone buzzed on the workbench, rattling against a stray socket wrench. I ignored it. My hands were deep in the engine bay of my '69 Mustang, a car I'd affectionately named Eleanor. She wasn't just a car, she was a 4-year project, a testament to scraped knuckles, greasy fingernails, and thousands of hours I'd poured into bringing her back from a rust bucket shell. The scent of oil and gasoline was my perfume. This garage was my sanctuary. The phone buzzed again, more insistently this time. A text message, then another, finally a call. The screen lit up with a picture of my dad. My stomach did a little flip-flop. He never called unless he wanted something, and it usually had to do with my younger brother, Leo. With a sigh, I wiped my hands on a rag and answered, putting it on speaker. "Hey, Dad. I'm a bit busy." "Doesn't matter," he said, his voice clipped and devoid of pleasantries. "We need to talk." "It's about Leo." Of course it was. Leo, the golden child, who could do no wrong, even when he was actively setting his life on fire. "What's he done this time?" I asked, already bracing myself. Was it another investment opportunity that turned out to be a scam? Gambling debts? "He's in a bit of a tight spot," Dad said, a phrase that could mean anything from a parking ticket to international felony charges. "His latest venture, it didn't pan out. He needs cash, and he needs it fast." I stayed silent, polishing a chrome valve cover while I listened. I knew where this was going. I was the responsible one, the one with the steady job, the one who saved, the one who built things instead of breaking them. I was the family emergency fund. "I need you to sell your car," he said. The rag in my hand froze. The silence in the garage was suddenly deafening, broken only by the hum of the overhead fluorescent lights. I thought I must have misheard him. "You need me to do what?" "Sell the car," he repeated, as if he were asking me to pass the salt at dinner. "That old thing you're always tinkering with. It's a classic, right? Should be worth a decent amount. Leo needs 25,000, and he needs it by the end of the week." I finally put the rag down and leaned against Eleanor's fender, my protector. "No," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. He had the audacity to laugh, a short, sharp, barking sound. "This isn't a negotiation. It's your brother. It's family. That thing is just a piece of metal and paint. Your brother's future is on the line." "My piece of metal and paint," I shot back, my temper flaring. "The one I spent 4 years and every spare dollar I had rebuilding from the ground up. Leo's future is on the line because of Leo's choices." "Don't you take that tone with me," he snapped. "You have a responsibility to this family. You will sell that car, give the money to your brother, and we will hear no more about it. End of discussion." And he hung up. I stood there, staring at the phone, my heart pounding with a fury so intense it made my hands shake. End of discussion? He thought he could just command me to liquidate my passion, my work, my one true joy, for his screw-up son? For years I had swallowed my pride. I'd given them loans that were never repaid, bailed Leo out of small jams, and accepted my role as the reliable, boring background character in the grand drama of Leo's life. But this was different. This was my soul he was asking for. Then an idea, cold and sharp and perfect, sliced through my anger. He wanted me to treat my car like a simple asset to be liquidated. Fine, I would. I walked into my office, sat down at my computer, and pulled up the meticulous spreadsheet I'd kept for the past 4 years. Every single part, from the engine block to the tiniest chrome screw, every receipt for paint, upholstery, and specialized tools, every hour of my labor, which I calculated at a standard mechanics shop rate. The total was substantial. I created a professional-looking invoice. Line by line, I detailed the costs. At the bottom, I added it all up. The final number was far more than the $25,000 he mentioned. I typed in my father's email address, attached the PDF, and wrote a simple 2-word subject line: car sale. In the body of the email, I wrote, "Per your request to sell the car to fund Leo. Here is the invoice for the full value. Payment is due upon receipt. Once the funds have cleared, I will sign over the title to you and you can sell it yourself." I hovered my finger over the send button, a wicked smile spreading across my face. I hit send. The reply came less than 60 seconds later. It wasn't an email. It was a text message from my dad, a single line of text that made the air in the room feel 10 degrees colder. "You have 5 minutes to call me back and fix this, or you will regret it." 5 minutes. I let them tick by, each second a tiny victory. I pictured him on the other end, his face getting redder, his temper simmering. My phone remained silent on the workbench. I didn't call. I went back to polishing the chrome, the repetitive motion calming my nerves. Let him stew. Let him understand that the days of his commands being my automatic marching orders were over. Exactly 6 minutes and 23 seconds after his text, my phone screamed to life again. It was him. I let it ring twice before picking up, leaning back against Eleanor's cool metal frame. I didn't say a word. "What is the meaning of this?" he roared. No preamble, no greeting. The sound was distorted with fury. "Are you out of your mind? An invoice? For $78,000? Is this some kind of sick joke?" "Hello to you too, Dad," I said, my voice eerily calm. "And no, it's not a joke. It's a bill of sale. You wanted me to sell the car to fund Leo. That's the price. It covers 4 years of parts, materials, and my labor at a discounted rate. You want the asset, you pay for the asset. It's simple business." "Business? This is family. Your brother is in serious trouble, and you're sending me spreadsheets like you're some kind of corporate shark? I am your father. You don't bill your father." "Leo isn't in trouble," I countered, my voice hardening. "Leo made a series of predictable, idiotic decisions, just like he always does. And for the last 10 years, you and Mom have enabled him, and I've been the one cleaning up the financial mess. I paid his rent for a year after he forgot to get a job. I covered the damages when he crashed your car. I paid off that ridiculous credit card debt he racked up on business expenses for a company that never existed. I'm done. My bank is closed." There was a moment of sputtering on the other end. He was so used to me just rolling over that my resistance had completely short-circuited his brain. "This is different," he finally managed to say, his voice dropping into a more manipulative, serious tone. He got in deep this time. "It's not just some silly debt. These are dangerous people." I felt a pang of something, a flicker of concern maybe, but I smothered it with the cold, hard memory of every time I'd been burned before. Then maybe Leo shouldn't have gotten involved with dangerous people. Actions have consequences. It's a lesson he is long overdue to learn. A lesson? "You think this is a time for a lesson?" he yelled, his voice cracking with a mix of rage and desperation. "They're going to break his legs, you selfish brat. They're going to ruin him. Is that what you want? For your own brother to be crippled because you care more about a stupid car?" The image was ugly, and it did get to me. But the manipulation was so blatant, so transparent. He was trying to make Leo's poor choices my moral failing. "What I want," I said, my teeth clenched, "is for my hard work and my property to be respected. What I want is to stop being treated like the family ATM. That invoice is my final answer. You want the car to save Leo? Pay the price." "There is no price," he screamed, completely losing it. "I will come over there and take the keys myself. You think you can stop me?" "Try it," I said, the two words hanging like ice in the air between us. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. I could hear his ragged breathing over the line. He knew I meant it. For the first time in my life, I had drawn a line in the sand, and he was on the other side of it with no idea how to cross. Just as he was about to speak again, I heard a sound that cut through our standoff, the crunch of gravel outside my garage. Headlights washed across the open bay door, throwing long, distorted shadows of my tools and equipment against the back wall. A car door slammed shut. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was he actually here? Had he really driven over to try and physically take my keys? "I'm warning you," I said into the phone, my eyes locked on the garage entrance. But the footsteps that followed were too light to be my father's. They were hurried, frantic. A figure appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the bright headlights. It wasn't my dad. It was my mother. Her hands were covering her mouth, her shoulders were shaking, and her face was a mask of pure, undiluted terror. "Alex," she sobbed, her voice a shattered whisper, "you have to help us. They know where we live." My father was still on the phone, the line dead silent now. He had heard her. "What's going on?" I demanded, my anger instantly replaced by a cold dread. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "Who knows where you live?" She stumbled into the garage, wrapping her arms around herself as if trying to hold herself together. Her eyes were wild, darting around the space before landing on me. "The men Leo owes money to," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. "They came to the house. Two of them. They just stood on the lawn, staring at the windows. Your father went out to talk to them." The phone in my hand suddenly felt like a lead weight. My dad had been on the phone with me this whole time. He wasn't at the house. "Mom, Dad is on the phone with me right now," I said slowly. trying to keep my voice steady. "He's not at home." Her face went pale, a new wave of horror washing over her features. "No?" she whispered, shaking her head in disbelief. "No, he left right after they showed up. He said he was going to get the money. He said he was coming here." My blood ran cold. The crunch of gravel I'd heard wasn't my mother. It was him. He wasn't in the car she had arrived in. A second set of headlights sliced through the darkness, pulling up right behind my mom's sedan, blocking the exit. The engine cut, and the sudden silence was terrifying. My dad got out of the driver's side of his truck, but he wasn't alone. A large, imposing man climbed out of the passenger side. He was built like a refrigerator, with a shaved head and a neck as thick as my thigh. He wore a tight black t-shirt that strained against his biceps, and his face was a stony mask, completely devoid of emotion. He scanned the garage, his eyes lingering on Eleanor for a moment before settling on me. This wasn't a friend. This wasn't a negotiation. "What have you done?" I breathed, my question directed at my father, who was still on the phone. I hung up on him and shoved my phone in my pocket. My dad walked towards me, his face a grim, determined mask. The other man stayed by the truck, a silent, menacing statue. "I'm doing what you wouldn't," my father said, his voice low and strained. "I'm saving your brother." "By bringing a loan shark to my house?" I spat back, incredulous. "What is wrong with you? You led him right to me." "His name is Marco," Dad said, gesturing vaguely towards the man. "And he's not a loan shark. He's a business associate of Leo's. He was kind enough to give me a ride. He just wants to see the collateral." My mother let out a strangled sob. "Frank, you promised you wouldn't involve Alex." "He involved himself when he refused to help," my dad yelled, his composure finally cracking. He turned back to me, his eyes pleading and furious at the same time. "Leo just needs a bridge loan, 25 grand. We give Marco the money and this all goes away. But you and your selfish obsession with this pile of junk stood in the way." Marco took a slow step forward, his presence sucking the air out of the garage. "Nice car," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Classic. Holds its value." He wasn't speaking to my father. He was speaking to me. It wasn't a compliment. It was an appraisal. "It's not for sale," I said, stepping between him and Eleanor, my body a physical shield. My dad scoffed. "Don't be a fool, Alex." "It's already sold. I made a deal. The car for Leo's debt." "You can't sell what you don't own," I said through gritted teeth. "The title is in my name. It's legally mine." My father reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He held it up for me to see. My stomach dropped into my shoes. It was the vehicle title. My signature was scrawled at the bottom of the seller's line. It was a fool. My signature was scrawled at the bottom of the seller's line. It was a forgery, and a bad one at that, but in this light, to a man who just wanted his money, it might be good enough. "I had to," my dad said, his voice filled with a disgusting self-righteousness. "You gave me no choice." "I'm still your father. This car was bought with money I gave you over the years, from birthdays, from holidays. Morally, it's half mine anyway." The lie was so audacious, so breathtakingly false, that I almost laughed. Every cent in that car was from my paychecks, from side jobs, from flipping parts online. He hadn't given me a dime since I turned 18. Marco started walking slowly towards the Mustang, pulling a pair of leather gloves from his back pocket. "Keys," he rumbled, holding out a hand, not to me, but to my father. My dad looked at me, his expression hardening. "Give him the keys, Alex." It's over. My mind raced. They had me cornered. My mom was a wreck. My dad had betrayed me in the most profound way possible, and this goon was about to drive away with the single most important thing in my life. The keys were in my pocket, heavy and solid. I could refuse, but I had no doubt Marco would take them from me by force. I was trapped. But then my eyes fell on the workbench, on the collection of tools I had laid out so neatly just an hour ago. And I saw it. A solution. It was a terrible, destructive, beautiful solution. With a deep breath, I looked Marco dead in the eye. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "It's over." I reached into my pocket, but I didn't pull out the keys. Instead, my fingers wrapped around the cold, heavy steel of the largest ball-peen hammer I owned. My dad's face flooded with relief. Marco's stony expression didn't change, but the corner of his mouth twitched, a predator sensing victory. My mom just sobbed, her hands over her face. They all thought I was giving in. They all thought I was beaten. They were all wrong. In one fluid motion, I swung the hammer. It wasn't a half-hearted gesture. It was a full-bodied, rage-fueled arc of steel that connected with the pristine driver's side window of my own Mustang. The tempered glass didn't just crack. It exploded. A shower of glittering crystalline cubes rained down onto the custom leather seat and the immaculate floor mats. The sound was like a gunshot in the confines of the garage. Everyone froze. My dad's jaw dropped. Marco's eyes widened in genuine shock. My mom let out a sharp, terrified scream. Before they could react, I swung again. This time, the hammerhead met the sheet metal of the driver's side door, right over the subtle body line I had spent a month perfecting. The metal screamed and buckled, leaving a crater the size of a grapefruit in the deep cherry-red paint. A spider web of cracks radiated from the impact. "What are you doing?" my father shrieked, finally finding his voice. "Are you insane?" "You wanted to sell the car," I yelled back, my voice raw with adrenaline and fury. I swung again, this time catching the front fender, denting it horribly. "Well, the value is dropping. Fast." Marco took a step back, his hands held up defensively. "Whoa, kid, easy. Just take it easy." He was a man who dealt in threats and intimidation, not unhinged destruction. This wasn't in his playbook. "You want to take my car?" I shouted, my words punctuated by another brutal blow, this time to the hood, leaving a massive, ugly dent right over the iconic running horse emblem. "You'll take it in pieces. You think your boss wants a wreck? You think this is worth $25,000 now?" My dad tried to rush me, to grab the hammer, but I spun around and pointed it at him. "Stay back!" You did this! This is on you!" He stopped dead, his face a mixture of fear and disbelief. I turned my attention back to the car, my Eleanor. It was agony. Every blow felt like it was landing on my own body. But it was also liberating. I was taking control. They couldn't take this from me if I destroyed it first. With a final guttural roar, I brought the hammer down with all my strength onto the center of the windshield. A massive, opaque web of shattered glass spread across its entire surface. The car was no longer a pristine classic. It was a casualty. Panting, I dropped the hammer. It clattered to the concrete floor. The garage was silent except for my ragged breathing and my mother's weeping. I looked at Marco. "The deal's off," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "Get off my property." For the first time, Marco looked not at the car, but at my father. His expression was pure ice. "You told me this was a clean deal," he said, his low voice laced with menace. "You told me the kid was on board. You forged a title and brought me to a psycho who just destroyed his own asset." My father stammered, I can fix this. He's just upset." "You can't fix anything," Marco snarled. He took a step towards my dad, who flinched back. "You wasted my time." "You lied to me. Leo's debt just doubled, and now it's your problem, too. All of it." He pointed a thick finger at my dad. "I'll be in touch." With that, he turned, got back in the truck, and peeled out of my driveway, leaving a cloud of dust and the stench of burnt rubber in his wake. My father stood there, ash-faced, looking at the wreckage of the car, at the space where Marco had been, at me. The full weight of what had just happened, of what he had caused, seemed to finally crush him. My mother ran to him, but he just stood there, a broken man. I didn't feel triumph. I felt a profound, aching emptiness as I looked at what I had done to Eleanor. The 4 years of work, the love, the passion, all shattered in a few minutes of desperate rage. But as I looked at my parents, I knew I had made the right choice. I had shattered more than just glass and steel. I had shattered the toxic dynamic of our family for good. I walked past them, into my house, and locked the door. I didn't know what would happen next, how my parents would deal with Marco, or what Leo's fate would be. But I knew one thing for certain: they would be dealing with it on their own. The family ATM was permanently closed. My price for freedom had been the thing I loved most, and as I slid down against the door and finally let my own tears fall, I knew deep in my bones that it had been worth it. The long, expensive process of rebuilding Eleanor could start tomorrow. Rebuilding myself, however, had already begun.